How do you handle cravings on a carnivore diet? Hi, I'm Jen. If you're new here, I am delighted to meet you. If you're not new, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about how to handle cravings on a carnivore diet. This is a question I get a lot, and so here's a list of my very best tips. Let me start by saying that once you are fat adapted and you've been carnivore for a few months, cravings really are not that big of an issue. And this is coming from a person who used to binge a lot. So trust me when I say I really don't struggle with cravings hardly at all anymore. I have such food freedom now. But in the beginning, it can be really hard, especially if you're coming from a history of binge eating or just eating sugar and processed foods and carbs and all the things. So just be prepared for the first 3 or 4 weeks to be a little bit tricky. And so during that time especially, my best recommendation is to just fill up on fatty foods. The more full you are, the less likely you're going to be dreaming about ice cream and popcorn and candy and all of those things. So fill up on bacon and butter and burgers and steaks and eggs, anything that sounds good to you. Don't be trying to mess with limiting calories or limiting fat. Just eat anything that sounds good and make sure it's good, healthy animal fats. That is going to help a lot. My second tip is to give up anything sweet, no sweet taste at all. So that includes chewing gum, diet sodas, anything with artificial sweeteners, even stevia. So things like sweetened electrolyte drinks, even that's a no-no, at least it was for me. Honey, fruit, anything at all. Those sweet tastes are gonna make it so much harder to get over cravings for sweet things especially. So I would say just eliminate them all, and in 3 or 4 weeks, you're not even going to be craving that anymore. It's gonna be hard, but you can do it. You can do anything for just a couple of weeks. My third tip is to consider cutting dairy. Dairy, especially cheese, can be quite addictive in itself. And I think for many people, certainly including carnivores, when you're giving up things like processed carbs and sugars, it can be easy to replace that with really highly palatable dairy products like cheese. So be really careful with that. It's hard to lose weight if you're eating a lot of cheese. If you have autoimmune issues, it's difficult to control those if you're eating a lot of dairy. So if you're struggling with cravings, consider cutting out the dairy. My fourth tip is to do your very best to avoid snacking. Snacking is almost always an emotional event, not actually a response to hunger. So if you're hungry, eat a meal. But I'd advise you against having a bunch of different snack items available to just eat whenever you want, because it becomes difficult then to break the habit of eating out of boredom or out of happiness or sadness, or, emotional eating happens typically with snacks. So I'd avoid that if I were you. During the first month, when cravings are at their worst, I would suggest avoiding places that you know are going to be tempting. So going to an ice cream shop or a birthday party or your favorite bakery. Honestly, I eventually want you to be able to get back to going to those places and being able to enjoy the company and enjoy the social aspect. But at first, it's so hard to resist the food there. So for the first month, try not to go at all. If you must go, eat beforehand. Eat a ribeye before you go, or bring some bacon in your bag, something that's going to keep you satiated, something that you look forward to eating, something that will keep you full so that you're not tempted by the muffins or the ice cream or whatever is in this environment that can be tricky. My next tip is to avoid creating carnivore versions of your favorite treats. So many things like ice cream or cupcakes even can be made using carnivore foods, usually using a bunch of dairy. But I'd caution you against that when you're still struggling with cravings, because for one thing, you're just filling the need for a craving with something else that you probably don't need anyway, but you want something that's cakey or ice creamy or whatever. So keeping those things around is a crutch in itself, but also I think it makes you want the real thing even more. It makes you continue to have that craving for a real cupcake or real ice cream. So while it's fine to have carnivore ice cream or carnivore cupcakes, something like that in the future, in the first month or so when you're just trying to break those cravings, I would avoid it. Tip number 7 is to stay hydrated. I know that sounds very simplistic, but it's true. If you're not getting enough to drink, you're going to feel sometimes hunger, even though what you're actually experiencing is thirst. You may also be having a little bit of electrolyte imbalance as your body shifts, so staying hydrated will help a ton. It also keeps your stomach a little more full, a little more stretched, so that you don't have as much physical cueing of hunger. Tip number 8 is to plan your meals ahead of time. You don't need to do that forever, though it can be a helpful tool forever if that's something you want to do. But at first, it can help prevent cravings, or at least prevent giving in to cravings, just because you have an outline of your day. Maybe you said, I want to have bacon and eggs for breakfast, I want to have a half pound of ground beef for lunch, and for dinner, I want to have a ribeye. When you have that plan, you don't have to think about, oh, should I have these carnivore crisps or this beef jerky before dinner because I'm kind of hungry now. Like, you know exactly what you're going to eat. You can kind of plan when you're going to be able to eat it, and it will help you prevent snacking. It'll help cut down on cravings. My 9th and final tip is to pick a number of days that you will not cheat. You will absolutely not give in to any cravings for non-carnivore foods under any circumstances. So for example, let's say you're gonna go with 30 days. Say you wanna start this, it's January 1st until January 30th. You absolutely cannot give in to eating a donut or ice cream or popcorn or any non-carnivore foods. Nothing sweet at all. Just for 30 days. Now, if something comes up during that time that you really, really wanna have, you cannot give in to it. But if you really want to, you could save that food item, put it in your freezer, and have it after the 30 days. But the point here is to make it 30 days completely doing what you said you were going to do, not giving in at all. And then after 30 days, you're gonna be so much less prisoner to those cravings. And then you can decide with a rational mind if you actually still want to eat those foods, if you wanna eat that thing that you stuffed in the freezer, or if you actually feel better without any of that and you wanna continue on being 100% pure carnivore all the time. Whatever you choose is fine, but just choose it with a rational mind, and you just aren't going to have a super rational mind for the first month or so. Now, one thing regarding that, I do not recommend having the end of the 30 days or whatever time period you choose be some big event. So for example, if you decide you want to do 30 days, but on day 31 it's your birthday, I don't think that's a good idea. Because even with a rational mind, after 30 days, you may say, well, now it's my birthday, so I'm gonna give in and eat all the things, and you may go on a serious binge fest. Now, I'm saying this from experience because that's the kind of thing I've done in the past. Now, that can be really dangerous. So instead of that, choose your number of days wisely. Choose it to end several days before the big event or several days after the big event, so that you can really calmly and rationally decide what to do about that big event. I've personally been carnivore for 1 year. I have not struggled hardly at all with cravings after the first couple of weeks, and I haven't given in to a binge even once. So honestly, that is miraculous. Along the way, I've learned a lot of things, and that's what I've presented to you here today. So I hope you find this helpful. And I'd love to hear in the comments anything else that you think would be helpful as well. I'd love for you to like this video and subscribe. And please, please look me up on Instagram. Delighted to meet you, and we can connect there every day.